About a mile from Garvagh, on the Maghera side, stand three prominent businesses: Eamon Bradley's Car Sales, Dan Rafferty's Car Sales, and FARLOW's Engineering. Just a couple of field lengths away on the other side of the road can be seen what remains of a farmhouse, and although now almost a ruin, 93 years ago this would have been considered a very fine dwelling, with a chandelier in the dining room. The farm itself consisted of 40 acres of very good land. The occupants of the house were William Berryman, his brother John, his wife Jane, and baby daughter Esther, who was about 6 months old. Another brother George had a farm on the other side of the Maghera road. William had married the much younger Jane in 1906, and this did not go down well with John, who had worked for many years in Australia and had put his life savings into improving the farm. It was by this time common knowledge among the neighbours that the two brothers were not getting along well. John felt that he was being treated no better than a farm labourer. On the 18th of March 1908, the two brothers were working in this field.
At midday, Jane called the two men in for their dinner. William, who was working at the top end of the field, arrived first and was eating his meal of soup and potatoes before John came. When John Berryman was washing his hands at the back door, he spotted a hammer in the scullery, a hammer belonging to another brother, George. John later said that when he saw the hammer, a wild instinct came over him. He lifted the hammer, went into the kitchen, and struck William one severe blow in the back of the skull. Jane got up to intervene and was beaten about the arms and shoulders while attempting to defend herself. She was also struck in the head. It's likely that William died almost immediately, but Robert Brizzle, who was the first person in the scene afterwards, said that Jane probably survived for another couple of hours. The baby, Esther, just 6 months old, was in the dining room and stayed on quite unperturbed.
After the murder, John hid the hammer in the manure heap at the side of the house. He probably buried his blood-stained clothes, for they were never found, and he then planted bottles a short distance up this lane to give the impression that the murder had been committed by tinkers who were in the area at that time. He then crossed the Maghera road at this point and went up the short lane, which is now FARLOW's engineering yard, onto the Balnameen road, where he met Maggie Brazel. Maggie was aged about 20 at that time and was on her way home from Garvagh when she had stopped to speak to another farmer, Johnny Wallace. Johnny Wallace was a neighbouring farmer of the Brazels and also George Berryman. According to a report in Garvagh Library, John Berryman is alleged to have said to them, "Come and see what has happened to Willie Berryman." According to the late Bob Brazel, John is supposed to have said, "Isn't that a wonderful thing that has happened up at Williams? A tramp has killed the both of them." The police were sent for. John repeated his story about the tramp, and although the countryside was searched in vain, by late afternoon the police were certain that they were not looking for anyone else. At that time the penalty for murder was death by hanging, and the local police must have known that the John Berryman was well on his way to booking an appointment with the executioner. The police sergeant in Garvagh at that time was Sergeant Patton, and on the day of the funeral, as John was walking behind the two coffins, he was arrested by Patton and two other constables, taken to Garvagh Courthouse and later to Coleraine, where he was charged with the murder of William and Jane Berryman. The funeral itself was not without drama, for at Boylan's Corner the sad cortege was met by a white horse which belonged to Tom McKee. This white horse became quite agitated and turned right round on the road. By all accounts, this was a strange and unusual happening. John Berryman was represented by solicitor William O'Kane, who resided at the Hermitage and who had an office beside where Jane's newsagent is now. John pleaded not guilty. The case lasted for 2 days. The jury, who were out overnight, returned a verdict of guilty, and the judge, Justice Gibson, passed the sentence of death. Justice in those days was swift, for John Berryman was hanged at Derry Prison on the 20th of August 1908. The farm was let until Esther came of age, and it was then sold to Bob Brazell for £375. This was the same Bob Brazell who was first in the house on that fateful day 21 years earlier. Esther herself went to live with an aunt at Bushmills and was given a new name to protect her identity. The house was occupied by several families over the years. All sorts of rumours abounded that the house was haunted and that bloodstains on the walls could not be erased. Others were supposed to have seen furniture moving about and pictures falling from the walls. Although we tried to get interviews from people who lived there, none were prepared to come in front of the camera, although all agreed that while living there they neither saw nor heard anything unusual. It is a popular belief around Garvagh that William and Jane are buried in Main Street Presbyterian churchyard at the bottom of the town. We decided to investigate the exact location of their graves. Hans Clyde has a map of that graveyard showing the names of everyone interred there, but the only Berryman names he could find was that of George, who died in 1954, and his wife, who died in 1966. So where is the final resting place of William and Jane? About a mile out of the town, on the Curran Road, on the left-hand side, can be seen the ruins of an old church and graveyard. This graveyard, Desertochel, or Desert as it is known by locals, we believe that the murdered farmer and his wife were buried there. There are 4 strong points to back up this theory. Firstly, Jane's maiden name was Turner, and the Turners' burying ground was at Desert. There are 2 prominent Turner headstones just inside the gate of the graveyard. The Berrymans originally came from the Coch district of County Tyrone, and so would have no burying ground in Garvagh. Secondly, Bertie Turner's father was a distant relative of Jane's, and he attended the funeral. Bertie is 99% certain that his father said that the funeral was to Desertochel. Thirdly, John Berryman was arrested at Boylan's Corner. Why would that have been? Because the funeral cortege was turning right up Rats Row, or Balnameen Avenue as it is now called. If it had been going on down through the town, the police would most likely have arrested John in the town. Fourthly, the Coleraine Chronicle report of the 28th of March 1908 states, "At the moment of his arrest, the prisoner was walking behind the hearse at the funeral of the victims, which was on the way to the burying ground at Desert." We did a thorough search of the graveyard, but could find no headstone with the Berryman name. However, I am now certain that William and Jane are buried there. The Berryman murders were well publicised in both local and national newspapers, and for many months after the event, trainloads of sightseers arrived in Garvagh from all over the province. Every Sunday the late Tommy Turner, as well as many other locals, had a good business going, transporting visitors to and from the train station to view the Berryman house. Tommy said that on some Sundays it was like a fair day. There were so many people there. Visitors would stay around the house and perhaps visit the town until it was time to catch the train back home.